Well, as we've been covering, a number of cities, including our nation's capital, continue to experience violent unrest. I want to welcome Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky to get his take on related matters. Hi, Senator Paul. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jennifer.
So let me start with this. You and your wife were recently victims of a mob attack in D.C. after last week's RNC events. How are you both doing following that experience? Are you moving forward with pressing any charges?
You know, I would say that we're shaken but physically unharmed. But I guess a lot of people don't understand that you can be attacked by a mob, surrounded by them, prevented from going anywhere, and that is an attack. And had the police not been there, I think the attack would have continued and become violent. We've all seen the images of what's happened in Portland, where a man was drugged from a car, beaten senseless, beaten till he's bleeding out from his ears. We saw another man who was taken from a shop trying to defend a store, beaten senseless until his body is contorted into what they call decerebrate posturing, which is an indication that you've had a brain injury. So yes, we were very concerned for that. Even when the police arrived and began to try to help us move, because we couldn't move, we were surrounded and they were hurling threats at us. Even when the police came, we were worried that they were outnumbered. But the police were very brave, and I talked to the president, and I do believe they deserve a commendation, because I think we might not have survived without the police being there.
And are you moving with pressing any charges? Do you know if any arrests in relation have been made?
They're doing an investigation, and I don't know enough about where the investigation lies. I do think that, yes, you should be arrested for accosting anyone and saying they can't move and shouting threats at them. You know, is that something you should get 10 years in prison for? No. But at the very least, it's disorderly conduct. But I think it could also be inciting a riot. It could be terrorizing somebody. It could be holding somebody unlawfully. There's all kinds of things that people could be charged with. But I think the mayor of D.C. decided to do nothing, basically. She was offered help with the National Guard. But I think it's an indication when we can predict that violence might come to a city, we need to be prepared. And I think a large show of law and order is a way to prevent it. Had there been a larger showing and possibly National Guard in the streets, I don't think this would have happened. But we're very concerned of what could happen, still shaken by this, and believe that we would have been trampled, kicked in the head, beaten to death had we not had the police there. And we thank God that the police were there.
Yeah, that video was certainly frightening, to say the least. And something I also noticed, some of the people that harassed you, they called on you to say Breonna Taylor's name, when in fact you authored a bill that would ban the no-knock warrant. That was the type of warrants that were used that led to her death ultimately. Do you know if Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is planning to bring that up for a vote?
We're pushing for it, but there is a certain amount of irony that I've actually authored a bill named after Breonna Taylor because I've had a long-standing objection to no-knock raids. I think they endanger our policemen who have to go in at night unannounced, but they also endanger those who are inside. And there have been errors. Sometimes it's a wrong address, or sometimes someone gets caught in the crossfire. This one's complicated because the people inside fired first at the police. So there's a lot of things going on, but I don't think we should be doing the no-knock raids. I had a conference call with sheriffs today from Kentucky who say they've never used no-knock raids. So I think there's a good idea and it's a good time to get reform, but kind of ironic that I've been a part of this criminal justice movement, even worked with President Obama on these issues, and yet I'm targeted and attacked. And I do believe that these hoodlums would have inflicted harm on us, my wife and the other two ladies that were with us. So, no, I'm horrified by this, but it's also a terrible irony that I've actually been an advocate for criminal justice reform, and they're targeting me.
Senator, finally, I want to get your take on this. We just heard from President Trump briefing the press. A majority of what he spoke about at the White House right now was the violent unrest that's happening in several cities across the country, specifically in Portland, Wisconsin. I have a two-part question. So we've seen a self-described Antifa member being accused of killing a Trump supporter over the weekend. At the same time, there are reports showing an increase in armed militia groups forming and organizing through Facebook, carrying out their own response to the riots, issuing a call to arms. What's your reaction to that Portland murder by the Antifa member? And do you think that these militia groups are justified in their actions?
I think that anybody causing mayhem, disorderly conduct, you name it, they all need to be arrested. Now, once they're arrested, we need to determine whether or not they're being funded by an interstate source. Then it becomes a crime across state borders, and that's a federal crime. So, yes, we need to investigate this, but the only way you can do it is actually by arresting people. People throwing Molotov cocktails, people setting fires, they all need to be arrested. And for the more serious crimes, like a Molotov cocktail or arson, absolutely they need to be arrested, and they need to be sent away for a long time to jail. Setting a fire, trying to kill a policeman with a Molotov cocktail or others, those are serious, serious crimes. Now, what would I suggest to people thinking they can, take their law and sort of create safety by going out and themselves armed in the streets? I would stay the heck away from Portland. I would go in the opposite direction as far as you can go from Portland. Don't go to Portland thinking you can create and make it a safe space. Leave, flee Portland, get the hell out of there, because it's not safe, because the local people, the local sheriff, I won't say sheriff, the local mayor, the local governor are doing nothing about law and order there. And this is the question people are going to answer in November. They're going to have to decide, do you want to live in a country that looks like Portland? Basically a country that's on fire with no law and order. And that's a real question that's coming, because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not denouncing the violence in our cities. They're not denouncing, a lot of this that's led by Black Lives Matter. And if they're not going to denounce that, then I think they become complicit.
All right. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky joining us today to discuss some of these pressing issues facing our country today. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jennifer.